Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on Mean Machine Talks. How accurate was I? Straight on midday. Look at that. I'm getting better each time with these. This is good. Welcome to Mean Machine Talks. I'm MeanMachineDean, obviously, in case you didn't realise. I have labelled myself there, which you can see. So I'm quite clever with stuff like that. Anyway, enough about me. A few things that we need to do before we start is a little bit of housekeeping. At the bottom left of your screen are two commands. Exclamation point podcast, and the other one is pod question. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this gentleman, who I will be introducing shortly, you can use exclamation mark guest. And if you wish to ask myself or said gentleman a question, then you can use that. You'll be given a link, you fill in a form, I get it, I see it here, and then we will ask it later on. All good? Cool. Right, without further ado, I'm now going to introduce said gentleman to my left. Well, your left, it's not my left, you know what I mean. It is Stuart Abominable Kennedy. So Stu, welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
Thanks so much, Dean. Yeah, I've never been called a gentleman so many times in one sentence. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on the podcast. I've been following your growth as a streamer and podcaster for a while now, and I'm very proud to be among some quite great people who you've had on your show.
Thank you. No, it's great to have you here, and it's nice to. It's funny we don't see each other that often, but when we do, it is good, even if it's virtually or in person. Yeah. So it's great to have you here, and I think everyone will agree, and especially in chat, it is wonderful to have you here and to finally be doing a podcast after such a long time. So, but no, welcome. It's great to have you here. So I guess part of the reason why I got you here is many people may not know about yourself or some of the work that you do. So what I normally do with my guests, you've probably seen a few of these, is to introduce yourself in about 30 seconds to a minute about who you are, what you do, and yeah, some cool things about you as well. So over to you.
Okay, so my name's Stu Abominable Kennedy. That's easy for me to say, and I've been involved in the games industry in some way, shape, or form since 2003, which is roughly around the same time that I met you, Dean. So it's been a long time. I started off as a competitor, and then I went into hosting and presenting for a live TV show early on. And then after going in and out of being a competitor again, I returned in full to the games industry maybe 2 years ago, and got back into hosting, presenting, and most recently have been a presenter and host for Belong and Game.
Nice. Well, sounds like you've been awfully busy as of late. I mean, I've seen some of your streams that you've done with Belong, and I mean, I guess it's quite weird when you see a friend kind of progress that high up a stage, especially to those levels. And I mean, you know, the work that you do is obviously second to none. Absolutely brilliant at what you do. I think the cool thing is that you bring a little bit of you bring professionalism, but a lot of comedy with what you do as well. And I think it helps break that ice of being too corporate and straight down the line and stuff like that. I mean, that's my own personal opinion. You may agree or disagree, I don't know, but that's my takeaway. I think it just takes that little professional edge off it, but it still gives that professional, clean presentation overall in the work that you do, from what I see anyway.
Thanks very much. Well, yeah, I do try and bring a lot of comedy to what I do. I would say, though, that some people might think that's a cockiness or arrogance, but actually humour and comedy is how I use to get myself out of some fairly awkward, sticky situations. I don't know what it's like with you, Dean, but being a gamer, I mean, you know, we're all stuck indoors right now. It's not really a big issue for me. No. I'm quite an insular person when I'm outside of doing that sort of thing. But I definitely find it easier to break the ice, whether it be in front of a room full of people or an arena or just one-on-one, to use humour to, you know, be self-deprecating. And the other thing I would say is that whole kind of humorous but not crossing the line. I've been called an uncle for longer than I've ever been an uncle. So I've kind of embraced that. And if I'm going to be this kind of, you know, cuddly, avuncular character, that's a good word, then I might as well embrace it and go with it.
That was a strong word you used. Say it again.
Avuncular. I heard it being described about a politician. I won't say who because I don't want to compare myself, but I thought that's a good word. What does that mean? It said like an uncle, and I thought that probably is a good description. So
well, I may jot that one down offline and try and use that at work next week. We'll see how that goes. But yes, a big hello to everyone who's currently in chat. I will try and keep half an eye on chat, but obviously I'm trying to concentrate on this. Sorry, I keep getting that wrong. That guy. He's there somewhere. Okay. Well, another thing I normally do with my guests is I kind of do a look back at their kind of gaming history and then kind of work forward up to the present day. So, one question I like to ask is, what's your earliest video game memory that you can remember?
Oof. Okay.
I've got him on the hop now.
Yeah, you have. We should probably tell everyone that you've not prepared me with any questions at all.
No, not at all.
So coming in pretty cold. I probably would say it was Asteroids on the Atari ST. It's either that or playing Elite on a BBC Micro. I can't remember which one of the two was first, because we had both around the same time actually. But it was I would say Asteroids. It was being chased by. I mean, it was actually Asteroids is really hard. It is really, really hard. I don't care what you say. And there's been many games that have been quite similar to it since. There was that game on the Xbox 360 that came out with it, which was very Asteroids-like. You know, the one I'm thinking of? It came...
Geometry Wars? Is that it?
Yes, that was it. Yeah, that's very Asteroids-like. Yeah.
I don't know where I just plucked that out of my brain from, but okay.
Great game. But I'm one of 4 siblings, and I remember thinking, I can beat some of my siblings at this, and that's what started me off. I think that competitiveness really started to kick off with those games early on.
Where are you in the age order of your siblings, if you don't mind me asking? There is a reason why I'm asking this.
Yeah, it's a bit odd actually. I've got a brother who's 11 years older than me, a sister who's 8 years older than me, and then a younger brother. We're all who's 3 years younger than me. So it's a big spread. We're all from the same parents. I think they just had a big break in between 2 of them. But it gave me a different kind of perspective, because my older brother was into completely different things to my younger brother, of course, and my sister. And I think I kind of took their interest in music and the songs I was listening to at the time. So I remember songs that I probably shouldn't. But then with my younger brother, we would just play games all the time.
That's really cool. So Deathborn has just asked if we can have a Asteroids competition between you and I. I think that would be hilarious, actually. We may have to set that up at some point. I will make a mental note of that and jot that down. I'll see if I can set that up as a stream. But yeah, if you do want to ask myself or Stu a question, there is a link that's just been put into chat. As I said, fill in the form and it will come straight through to me. I already have one that's sitting here at the moment, so we will go through that at some point. But yeah, I think it's interesting when it comes to gaming and siblings, because my brother, who's currently in chat, used to kick my ass at Street Fighter, and now I'm better than you, aren't I? But we won't say that out publicly. But it's funny because I think if you're a younger sibling and you have someone older who's just been pounding you over the years of just beating you in gaming and stuff like that, there's something inside that just makes you want to work harder and get better. And I think that's why now he'd probably come through and actually punch me in the head for saying this, but yeah, I think I am probably the more superior gamer now. He'll argue as because he hasn't practiced, but we all know that's rubbish anyway. We all know younger siblings are better gamers anyway. But no, but yeah, I mean, that's great choices, by the way, because I mean, Asteroids is such a staple of a game. It's so simple, but so brilliant at the same time. Yeah.
It's hand-eye coordination. It's just pure hand-eye coordination.
Agreed.
And my older brother was so competitive, like annoyingly competitive. And I don't know why I'm shaking my head at this, because I just took all of that. I was an absolute nightmare to be friends with when I was younger. I had this thing, and I'm not, if some of my friends are watching, I'm sorry to admit this, but I used to, you know, when you were younger, you'd have Mega Drive, Nintendo, whatever your gig was back then, Mega Drive for me. I'd swap games with my friends and then spend the whole weekend trying to get better at the game than they are. So when I'd go over to their house and give them their game back, I'd like make a point of trying to smash them at it. Sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. But I was that annoying guy where you just didn't want to lend the game to your mate because you just destroy them.
Or one of those things where it's got like a high score and you just set that high score and save it on the cartridge and then just hand it back and be like, oh, good luck with that. Yeah, and then they'll go back and be like, oh, you swine, how dare you. It's like, yeah, well, you know.
Stays on the card.
Yeah, exactly. That's there forever now and you must try and best me. Well, okay, that's interesting. So, going into kind of moving on slightly, I mean, you mentioned about kind of friends and stuff like that. Was there a specific standout game that you remember where, like, you know, you used to go around a friend's house and there would be like loads of you all playing a game together? Was there a specific game or something that you used to play?
Yeah, so this is an interesting part of my childhood, right? So I've got a Midlands accent, sort of. I'm from the Midlands area.
It's a bit of a blummy.
Hey, take it easy. That was like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing an impression of a Brummie.
I am a Brummie. Get down, you
idiot.
Get
into the chopper.
I must apologise.
So when I was growing up, Stourport-on-Severn, it's a riverside town and it's got loads of canals, and it had an identity crisis. It thought it was a seaside town, so it had like ice cream parlours, chip shops, and loads of arcades. And actually, everyone I know from my hometown when we were growing up were really good at games because, you know, if you're given £3 in pocket money or whatever you're lucky enough to be given when you're a kid, and you go down the arcade with your friends, you are going to try and make that last. And that goes back to the fighting game mentality as well. You gave your opponent no chances whatsoever. You weren't there to be friendly and have loads and loads of fun because you would lose money. You were putting money down on your games.
Agreed.
So everyone who I grew up with, we would all like just play super competitively. We'd go down the arcade. We used to play competitive Point Blank. You know, do you remember the shooting game? Oh, I wish I owned that now.
Funny enough, I actually, sorry to cut you off quickly. I actually played that in VR not long ago with a virtual TV, and it's amazing. Anyway, we'll cut back. I can see your jaw is dropped, but I'll touch back on that later.
Yeah, please. But the games we used to play probably most were Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. But then there were other games where not so much competitive, but just playing all the time. That everywhere had an arcade machine, whether it was a fish and chip shop to even an aquarium. There was an aquarium near us that had an arcade at the back. It was called Slippery Sails, right? Big up Slippery Sails. And at the back, it had Sunset Riders.
Oh,
Mortal Kombat. I mean, and Sunset Riders, we'd have some money for our lunch and we'd spend it playing Sunset Riders rather than actually spending it on food. So we were complete reprobates, but it's completely in our blood. Anyone from that area that you're going to be into video games.
That's really cool. And it's funny you say that because I was going through my mind not so long ago, and I was like trying to remember places that had arcades. And obviously in London there were places like the Trocadero, which was obviously quite well known for arcades and stuff like that. But yeah, I genuinely remember going to the most obscure places and there would just be an arcade cabinet there, and you're like, what? Why is this here? And it's funny you said about that aquarium. That must have been a hell of a surprise, walking into an aquarium and finding an arcade machine there.
One of the best kept secrets. It's really odd, but yeah, it's so much fun. Everywhere just had it, and it's just in the town's DNA. So there's quite a few of us that came out of that area who were into competitive games.
Yeah, it's amazing how arcades kind of faded away, but still in some countries it's a main source of gaming. I mean, you go somewhere like Japan, and I mean their arcade culture is still incredibly strong out there, yet you come more west and it seems that there's this, you know, obviously the home computers and stuff obviously have now started to dominate, but yeah, I mean the arcade culture here is almost like an exclusive thing now, you know, whereas before it was available everywhere. You know, there's events that I've been to a few Play Expos in the UK. I went to the one that was in Blackpool, of all places. Sunny Blackpool. It wasn't. It was raining, and you know they filled this entire room full of arcade machines. And in fact, they had a Tekken 3 cab. And just walking up to that, I was like, I feel like I'm home again. You know, it's just something about an arcade machine that when you walk up to it, you just feel like I'm home, you know, especially if you've grown up with arcade machines and stuff like that over the years. It just there's a warm feeling you get just walking up to it, and especially all those nostalgic memories that start to roll back as well.
Yeah, it's the smell as well. There's a weird smell about. Honestly, like to be fair, part of it is cigarettes. So I need to wipe that part out of my memory. That's never happening again. But there's a weird smell about the monitors. You can almost smell the electric in the air. It's really weird. It's a staticky. I don't know how to describe this. If anyone in chat knows what I'm kind of talking about, help me out. There's a staticky feeling in the air. It's really odd, but I love it.
It's the old CRT. It's the old CRTs working hard. That's what it is.
Yeah, coming away.
But the sad point of that is like, I mean, it's brilliant that companies like Play Expo put these incredible events on to bring all these arcade units back. But the issue with that is as they're in transport, because they're moving around and you're dealing with such, in some cases, some very, very old electronics. By the time they arrive, 9 times out of 10, they almost need a repair straight away. So it's a blessing in disguise, because you kind of, you know, you get to experience these beautiful things, but at the same time, you know eventually that they're slowly starting to die and deteriorate. So it'll be interesting to see if people try to modernise an old cabinet, you know, so sort of replace the CRT for a modern flat screen, and then maybe change the arcade board for maybe a custom-made modern board with the same arcade ROM on it. I don't know what people's feelings would be on that, because obviously it's a bit weird in the retro community. There's some that are kind of embrace new ways of adding technology to things, and then there's those that are like, no, it must be original, which to be honest, I kind of agree with. But, you know, technology is starting to fade. I mean, I've got a stack of Amiga discs here, and I know that these are just starting to deteriorate because they do after age. I mean, the disc is probably, what, 30 years old? So after a while, they do just start to deteriorate.
Who just pulls an Amiga disc out from their desk where they're sitting anyway? Of course they're going to deteriorate.
I mean, you know, it's what I do. You know, I just have discs, floppy disks, drives. Yeah, it's
just a fancy coaster.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It was actually from a recent stream where I got sent a box of Amiga stuff, and yeah, there's a couple of questionable items or questionable labels on some of those discs. I haven't had the courage to actually delve into those. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, okay, that's interesting to know about kind of your childhood and stuff. So let's start to move into kind of the stew of modern day. So you and I obviously met on a specific TV show, which I guess you can probably go into now. So what was your kind of introduction into kind of that part? Well, I'll let you introduce
oh, wow. How honest do I want to be? Okay, so... Okay, so when I was at university, I was playing Tekken. Tekken 4 was out, and I was playing it very, very competitively. I was one of the best players in the Midlands, but just below the top level. There were players who, it was weird. There was a big gap between me and the rest of the field, but there was also a big gap between me and the best players. I was sort of feeling like Andy Murray in the time of Djokovic and, you know, Nadal and Federer. Like I was just around the area in the Midlands, and I was playing loads and loads, loving it, and had loads of free time on my hands at university. And then in 2003, a competition came out called the UK's Ultimate Gamer. And it was a bizarre competition. It was literally a advertising mechanism for the Hulk on PS1. And the Hulk is a single-player game. So how do you define who's the best? Well, it was a lot like Streets of Rage. You'd walk through an area, you'd just try and smash as many people as possible. So the idea was that they would time people from 0 to 3 minutes, and the more people you smash within that set time, the better you do. Now, it was really tough competition. There were 3 stages, and the first stage was you play in a Virgin Megastore, remember those? And then if you won that one, you'd go through and play at a cinema. And it was a Warner Brothers cinema. Remember those? I don't even know if they're still around. And then you go, if you win that one, you then play in the Empire at Leicester Square, where they have all the premieres. And it was all on the Sci-Fi show, and there were 1,000 competitors. So I turned up at the Virgin Megastore and just about scraped through. And I had about a month until the next round, where the 1,000 players was whittled down to a few hundred. And this is where I'm thinking that how honest am I going to be here? So I had a chipped PS1, right? The Hulk was not out yet.
Everyone did.
yeah.
And if you didn't, you're a liar.
Actually, no. Yeah, it was a PS2 actually, and they were hard to chip. They were very hard to chip. My dad, it took him a long time.
Let's just say me and my family know quite a lot about that. Carry on.
So I thought, okay, the game's not out yet. I just about scraped through. What do I do? So I got the US version of the Hulk, which came out months ahead, because we're back in the day, right? So for those younger people, the game just didn't come out all on one day. It would come out in one region months ahead of another region for virtually no seemingly good reason. I'm sure there was a good reason at the time. So I managed to get the imported version of the game, played it. So I had a bit of a head start on most of the other players. So played the semi-final, smashed everyone, got to the final. The game had just about come out, so I was playing against people who knew the game. There were 30 players left over.
Wow.
And I played on the big screen at Leicester Square, and it was all on the Sci-Fi channel. I got to the last 2. Had to play a tiebreaker 3 times before I managed to take it, and won that tournament. And that tournament was a launching pad for me. It's been the launching pad from day one. I fortunately won £15,000, which to a student, and anyone, never mind a student at the time, is a life-changing sum. And I was then started to get interviewed on TV shows, and that's how I moved from doing little bits and bobs on the Sci-Fi channel to being on a live TV show called GamerWeb. In 2003, 2004, I was a regular presenter on the show, and that's how I met you.
Indeed, and I remember watching it. I just going back to your story. Then we have similar stories, because I remember when I was on Games World years ago, back in '94. After I'd got through the first round, after I got through the first round, I think it was not. Was it near my birthday? I think it was. And basically, I had my birthday. My dad had bought me NBA Jam. So I played that religiously. Little did I know that the day that I then went back to go and film, they were like, oh yeah, next game that you're going to be playing is NBA Jam. And everyone's like, oh, I've not played it. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to stretch out because I've pretty much got this one in the bag. And I was right. So yes, practicing ahead of time definitely does help. But yeah, going back to GameWeb, I mean, yeah, it was funny because I remember, God, when was this? Early 2000s, so I would have probably still been at school, I think, or college maybe. I remember flicking through Sky, and then like I was like, oh, a gaming channel, what the hell's this? And then kind of like went through, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, because at that time, I mean, there wasn't really any, or very little gaming channels or content around. I mean, I could have been wrong, but I mean, I think it was probably one of the only ones. Maybe there was one other, I think, off the top of my head.
Only one at the time. Now, you and I are connoisseurs of gaming TV, right? So you remember, we are. So, however good or bad it is. So there was GamerWeb on Friendly TV, which we should talk about for a moment because there's some funny stories there. It was a very janky show. And then shortly after, there was Gamesville on Sky One.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of. Right.
And throughout the time, there was that other show called Cyber something, which was basically a dude doing a voiceover with a I can't think what it was. It was on ITV late night, but it wasn't really a pure game show. You'd never see the people. It would just be voiceover reviews, and they'd change the voice for the region it was going out in. It was cheap TV.
I remember that.
But there was yeah, there was Gamesville, which honestly, I don't know. Look, I want to be professional here because I'm still doing stuff in the industry. But if I ever fully retire from being in the video games industry, please have me back on to talk about Gamesville. That show was really, really painful to watch.
there we go. So I've pretty much.
It was the Ali G of video games. How about that? There was something very Ali G about it.
So I think what we need to do is get Stuart back when he finally retires, or wait for his autobiography, which is going to be like my gaming history, and then ... You wait until you hear this.
I've got a list of things I'd love to talk about once I'm out, but I never would have professionalism. I found that show painful to watch. But to be fair, GamerWeb, I can't really talk because that show was a blessing and a curse. It was on for 3 or 4 hours a day, depending which week it was. It was all over the shop, and it was 3 or 4 hours of pure live TV. Which for a 21-year-old, I mean, I was a boy. I don't care what you say. I was a boy, and I would go on that show, travel down to London from Birmingham, and I'd be sat with other professional presenters, and they would teach me how to be on live TV. And it was, I cut my teeth. I literally clocked probably, I would say close to probably around 100 hours of live TV, and it was the best experience ever. I learned so much. But oh my god, the show was low budget, and oh my god, the mistakes were heinous. I mean, we'd make the most terrible mistakes. Production would leave mics on when they shouldn't, and things would be said. We would not go to breaks when we should. Everything was bad. The production quality was quite low. It was very Wayne's World-like, but it had a cult following. And people really did start to get behind it because the people on the show were really, really into video games.
Yeah, I think that was it. The way I would probably describe it was a bit like a bit like what I'm doing here, is trying to run something semi-decent from like a bedroom type setup, although it was from memory when I was on there twice. So was it twice or once I was on there? I'm trying to remember now. I think it was definitely once. But yeah, I remember it was set up quite professionally. You know, you had like a proper mixing deck and cameras and lights and lapel mics and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is pretty good. But the problem is that what you get to see on the other side probably didn't replicate that. But
no. It was a professional setup. It was just using technology from a few years before, just they weren't investing. They had spent a lot of money on the actual quality of the production, but in terms of the, I was doing it on a shoestring. I would have never been able to do it full time. The advertising was those weird adverts where it showed you can buy tapes with 100 songs on it and ring this 0800 number now using the code GamerWeb and you will buy it. The advertising model was a bit odd, but it was a curse and a blessing. It was great that I got to do it. I got the experience. I would say to anyone watching now, when you're starting off, just take what you can get. You're never too big for any show whatsoever. And that show had professional people who'd worked at Sky. It just didn't have the best rep in the industry. When I say it was a curse, when that show ran to a close, which was in 2004, I think it ran for around 2 years or so, I went to try and get presenting work at other shows and got reasonably far. Like I went for I got invited to do a screen test at Bravo. I think it was Bravo. For what I think was going to be When Games Attack. I think they just hadn't got. Do you remember that with Dominic Diamond?
Yeah.
I don't think Dominic Diamond was secured at the time, but at the time they were looking for a male and female presenter and I met loads of great people. Alex Very, Big Boy Barry was there. I remember him being there. There was a few of us, and it was just nice to be invited amongst those other people. I also didn't get that, unfortunately. I think Dominic Diamond got that, but then I went for another show at Rapture, and I remember Rapture was a dance music channel, and I remember being invited in to have a chat with them, and the first thing they said is, "You didn't work on that GamerWeb show, did you?" Because that was awful. And I thought, this is not a good start. This is definitely not a good start. Right. But I wouldn't swap it for anything. It was an amazing show to be on, and such good experience.
It was strange because it almost had like a bit of a, like I said, it was almost like it was a group of mates in a bedroom trying to do something, right? And it was there wasn't really a kind of schedule. It kind of just ran as it had, and you had different segments and stuff like that. But I think there was definitely a charm to it, and as you said, I mean, I guess to some degree you kind of picked up knowledge from the peers that you were working with, as well as obviously the kind of setup and how things work, and when to cut in, when not, when to turn mics on and off, those kinds of things. So it's one of those things where I think, even though it was a kind of smallish channel, from yourself, you've obviously picked up a great deal of knowledge, which you've then obviously carried on into the future. So it's amazing how sometimes you look at these things and go, God, that was bad, but then out of it comes obviously something fantastic, which then brings me on to another question. So where did your love for that start? And if you don't know what I'm pointing to, that is the original Tekken. That is what I want to know, because I mean, we used to play quite competitively online, but I've never known where your introduction to Tekken came from. So let's quickly dive into that lane.
Yeah, so we've got to jump in the time machine and go backwards for a moment. So I was probably around about 16, 17. I got the PlayStation 2, no, maybe 18, PlayStation 2, and Tekken Tag 1, sorry, came out. And I'd already played Tekken 3 to an okay-ish level. I'd gone to a tournament. I was on one of the best players in my town. Went to this tournament, got smashed in the first round versus this Italian guy. He said, "You're not very good." And I thought, right, I play every single day. I play every day.
You got mugged off by Mario. That's terrible.
This guy actually is still a prominent player now, and that was, 20 years ago?
Oh, it's not who I'm thinking of, is it?
No. Well, it's not a big player, but he's involved in the scene still. But that stuck with me. And when I got my PlayStation 2 and I got Tekken Tag, that game just was amazing. I hit the next level. I was playing more people. I went off to university and started to play more of the local scene, and got into the tournament scene there. Tekken 4. A lot of people don't like Tekken 4. Stylistically, I think it's the best Tekken out there. Game balance, maybe not so much, but I just got sucked into the scene then, and that, much like GamerWeb, right? There's always people out there who don't like the new guy. The new guy comes in, beats the odd person, and it was similar with doing GamerWeb. I was this new presenter, and some of the other presenters weren't entirely helpful. But there's always one or two people who take you under their wing and sort of protect you and let you learn with them. And in GamerWeb, it was that Yanis Morgan, who I still owe a lot of my career to now.
Great guy, really great guy.
An amazing presenter, still presents today. He's done many things. And in the Midlands scene, there were certain Midlands players who really took me into their wing. And me travel to tournaments, let me travel in their car, and it turned out okay. I'm not that bad. I'm okay. I can play, and it's stuck with me ever since. It's an amazing game. It's so well balanced. But I think the one thing that really got the fire in my belly was now, Dean. I don't know if you did this. Did you collect the official PlayStation magazine and get the CDs off the front?
Oh yes.
There was this one CD off the front, and I think it might have actually been a CD. I don't know, but it had a video of Ryan Hart winning the UK Tekken 3 Championship. No, it was the World Tekken 3 Championship.
I remember that. God,
and the video's it's on YouTube. You can find the video. It's really grainy. It's awesome. Right?
Brilliant.
But it's the exact content ripped off the CD or DVD at the time. And I watched that video and I thought, hang on a minute, like you can win big money playing games. And it wasn't just the money, it was the production value at the time. They had all the footballers, like, you know, playing in the tournament. And it's just that he was rubbing shoulders with very people. And I thought, wow, this actually can go somewhere. This can do something. And that got the fire in my belly. That made me actually start to practice properly and learn the game properly. Download combo videos, which back in the day took you hours to download a 3-minute video.
Yep.
And also like review move lists and frame data. And when you get into frame data, that's when you'll start to get really serious about a fighting game, not just Tekken. And the bugs have been with me ever since. The one constant, you know, presenting, hosting is a massive love in my life. I love it. But the one constant in my gaming career has actually been competing. And in my heart, that's probably what I see myself as more than anything else. So yeah, that's always stuck with me. And Tekken's been the game that I've always been able to best compete at.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a brilliant game. And I mean, it's funny because people always ask me this question, is it Street Fighter and Tekken? Like, I constantly swing when it comes to Street Fighter. I kind of went all the way up to 3 and Alpha and stuff like that. And I don't know why, I just didn't... After the 2 and all of its different variants, I just couldn't get back into it. But then kind of with 4, Street Fighter 4, I definitely fell back in love with the franchise and stuff like that. And then I kind of sat back and went, okay, what's the next one's going to be? And like I heard about Street Fighter 5 and obviously the new Tekkens and stuff. And I thought, okay, here we go. And then I played Street Fighter 5 and I was like, I don't like it. And I don't know if it was me. Like, I thought it was me. And then I started looking online and people were like, this isn't Street Fighter for me. So then I got back into Tekken, started playing 5 again, got into 6, and then obviously got into 7. And I was like, this feels more like home. This feels like what I was used to, what I enjoy, the fun factors there. There's lots of things. There's bowling. You know, those cool things that bring back nostalgia, right? And it was just something about the Tekken series. You can go back and play even that one, to be honest, and there's still like the consistent feeling and the playthrough and the characters and stuff like that. And it's just something really nice that you can pick up almost any Tekken, obviously without going into too much information, and still have a great time. But I feel like with some of the Street Fighters, like, you can pick them up and play them, but will you necessarily enjoy it? I think that's up for debate. That's my own personal opinion, but I just feel like the Tekken series has a lot more consistency, is probably the word I'm looking for, throughout its ages, where I think Street Fighter sometimes tried something, which is not always a bad thing, tried something a bit too much and in turn almost harmed themselves. In my opinion, I still think 4 is probably one of the best modern versions of it since it's been made.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm for the record, before I do slate Street Fighter, I absolutely love Street Fighter. In fact, if I'm looking around the areas of my room now that you can't see, there's more Street Fighter related memorabilia than there probably is Tekken. And because I love the style of it, it's in my heart. That started it. That's the granddaddy. Like the Street Fighter 2, I feel like so many other games just spun off that, right?
Agreed.
That and 4, Street Fighter 4. I mean, I don't know how much you've ever gone into watching. I know you do watch competitive games. You've watched Evo. Like
I do.
some of the finest Evo moments and matches I think have happened in Street Fighter 4 and Marvel. Those games are amazing. But when it went to 5, I feel like it lost. And at the same time, Tekken went from 6, which was, in my mind, pretty soulless, to be honest with you. A lot of people will disagree with me on that. But 7 came in, and it was just a new lease of life for the Tekken franchise. So a lot of the Street Fighter players actually stepped away and went more towards Tekken.
Agreed.
Those Street Fighter players that stuck with Street Fighter a lot of them, the honest ones, will admit that they're not actually enjoying it, but they're good at it, right? And there's a difference between enjoying the game because it's good and enjoying being good at a game.
No,
They don't always go together.
I agree, and I think there's. I mean, I was stunned when I learned. I can't remember if it was the Evo that's just gone or the one before, that more people had entered the Tekken variant of tournament than the Street Fighter one, and it was the first time it ever happened. I kind of took a step back and went, "Wow! Like Namco have really pulled something off here." And it was funny because, like, I still trawl through forums and kind of, as you said, go through YouTube videos of competitive plays and stuff like that. And it's funny because as you start to go through the comments of what people say, they're like, I just want my Street Fighter back. Like, I feel dirty that I've had to almost migrate over to Tekken to have a better competitive experience than something that just seems to have been broken from the get-go. And it's such a shame, and I really hope that Capcom really take this on board and don't just kind of go, oh, we'll just throw another Street Fighter out there. Like, actually sit there and think about what they're doing, because, you know, it's great to just put a game out there and slap a Street Fighter badge on it and say, here it is, it's done. But it's not good for fighting games as a whole. I mean, to be honest, there aren't too many that I can think of the top of my head that I would say are genuinely great fighting games in the modern era.
Fighting games. I'd love to play a fighting game. I'd be quite good at
fighting game. There we go. No, there's not many fighting games that you know, that I would say are very good. Selfishly, I would probably say obviously Tekken's probably the top at the moment. But I mean, there's Soul Calibur, but I mean, you know, that kind of is up for discussion. Some people love it, some people don't. You know, the Samurai Showdown series has tried to bring some of that back, and it's not a bad game. Dragon Ball Z, I mean, the list goes on. So there's some that I would say are enjoyable, there are some that I would just say are bad, and then there are some that I would say are enjoyable and competitive that sit at that top tier. And to be honest, the only one I can see really at the top as a consistently competitive experience is probably Tekken.
Right now, yeah. But I even as a Tekken player, I do hope that shifts. That I'd be interested to know whether Capcom do see Street Fighter V as a success. If they had to choose one or the other, success versus failure. There are lots of things financially that say it has been a success in terms of the amount of investment they've had for the professional scene.
Agreed.
You know, aside from the pros moaning about the game, a lot of people play the game. I think there's one thing that they can unquestionably say did not go well, which was Marvel. So I am a huge Marvel fan. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is, for me, up there with Tekken as being one of the best fighting games I've ever played. And moving from that to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was an absolute disaster. Like, the game just lost support immediately from the players and the actual devs. It was a bad game, and stylistically it moved away from a comic book feel to a pretty ugly game, if you ask me. And I remember, I'm sure we'll go into this in a bit, but, you know, being part of the East London Fighters community, they put on Marvel vs. Capcom tournaments Infinite, and the size of the scene just shrunk. There were so many Marvel vs. Capcom 3 players that just disappeared because that game was just not good. So I think Capcom are in a really rocky place right now, and their next games need to be quality. They need to be really good, and I really hope they are. There's not, you know, Sega versus Nintendo, right? Sega fans kind of used to actively want Nintendo to do bad, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't think it's like that with fighting games. No. You just want the whole. If the tide rises, everyone rises with the tide, right? So the next games need to be really good, because if Street Fighter 5 was as good as Street Fighter 4 and Tekken 7's out at the same time, imagine how big the FGC would be now. I think the level of investment would be huge.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the one thing I will say, and I think I've said this before actually on the podcast, is that of all of the different gaming communities out there, I think personally the FGC, that's the fighting game community for those who don't know, is probably the best out of all in terms of support for one another, development, professional gaming, and the one thing that is lacking currently is that option to drop and kind of mix around into different fighting games, because there's just nothing out there besides kind of Tekken and possibly Street Fighter for people to really grip onto and really start to progress into. And you're absolutely right, the better the games get, naturally everyone rises up to that. So, you know, I used to love playing a variety of different beat 'em ups. I mean, someone's just mentioned in chat about, you know, not playing SNK games. Honestly, some of the SNK fighting games from yesteryear, fantastic. Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, two brilliant games to start off with. But again, you know, maybe these franchises need a kick up the button to be rebooted into something good again. But we'll see. Or they'll just keep porting them into Tekken. That seems to be the thing at the moment. So, okay, so let's go on to professional Stu now. Not that you're not professional, but, you know, kind of your professional life right now. So how did you then progress into kind of your professional gaming and then obviously into the casting that you do right now?
So as we left off when I Game Aware bended and I started to try and other shows, I was hitting rejection regularly, and you know, anyone involved in this industry should be used to that, and I got used to it pretty quickly. The only firm offer I had to do any TV work, to do a late night poker show where you'd be talking over very high stakes professional poker being played online. The production format was quite high, but they were looking for people to do the red eye shift. Right. And that was the best I could do. And I decided that I should probably step away because it wasn't for me to do that. And that I should get a normal job, in inverted commas, and return to being a player. So I did that for, how many years would that have been? God, 13 years or so? 13 years, wow. And yeah, very, very happy just being a player here, there, and everywhere, and attending the odd big tournament, picking up the odd placing but never winning, but enjoying being one of the better players in a really, really vibrant scene. And then Tekken 7 came out, and everything just changed. So I moved to St Albans from London, started to move outside of the city, and thought, I'll just hit up Facebook and see if there's any local gaming groups. And there was this dude who was posting like regular posts in this local gaming group saying there's a tournament in South America going on right now at 3 a.m. And I was like, this guy is watching tournaments at 3 a.m. in the morning. He is massively on it. And we organised a meetup with a few of us. There was probably 5 of us. We all met up in a pub. And that guy who set up the local group was Eternal Dragon. And we quickly became really good friends. And everything changed from thereafter. We kept in touch. We played games here and there. We went over to a friend's house near St Albans he had an arcade machine. And we played Street Fighter. And we were getting ready for Street Fighter out and Street Fighter 5 being good. And it wasn't. And then before we knew it, Tekken came out. And we pushed each other really hard. He was way better than me at Street Fighter, but I was probably quite a bit better than him at Tekken at the time. And we would push each other very hard, and I would push him to get better at Tekken. And we went to the UK Tekken Championships as the game came out. And it quickly dawned on us that we weren't just like buddies, we were actually a bit of a team. I remember I got to I placed in that tournament, got to the outside of my group, and he came and gave me a big hug, and I thought, this is like,
that's cool.
Yeah, it's like this guy's a really good mate already. And before we knew it, we were looking at potentially doing commentary. Eternal Dragon went down to the East London Fighters events, which were at the time these kind of, they were doing like bar fights. It was, you know, people drinking Friday night after work, and then you'd have grudge matches, you'd have light tournaments, and it was a proper bar fights feel. He did some commentary, and I thought, oh God, I really would like to do that again. I just hit the reset button on my career, do it all over again. And the head of East London Fighters gave me an opportunity to do some commentary with him, and then Eternal Dragon, and that's how it all started. We started to become regular commentators for East London, and the whole identity of East London Fighters fitted with Eternal Dragon. I were all about that. The skill range was really not very good to really, 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 but everyone was treated the same. Everyone was treated the same. And being in East London kind of area, the diversity was huge, you know, male, female, all races, religions, everyone was there. It didn't matter that you're in a bar and you didn't have to drink if you didn't want to, for whatever reason. It was a proper community feel, and people were really helping each other get better, and there was no judgment. And that's what, it made me fall in love with the whole scene all over again. Eternal Dragon and I had ended up building enough material doing the stuff for Elf, and that Elf just let us fall on our face and try new things and be silly. We had enough for a show reel, and before we knew it, Belong were advertising that they needed some Tekken commentators to do the finals of one of their Belong tournaments. We sent them a show reel. We got hired the day of. We found out that they were contacting everyone but us to try and do commentary for them. But they rolled the dice with us. We were unknowns, right? They were looking for pro players, and good on them. That's what you would do. Try not to gamble with a big corporate pot of investment. But we got an opportunity in the end to commentate for them, and it just changed everything. We Belong, had been absolutely amazing to us. They gave us the opportunity, and before we knew it, we were on the big stage, commentating at Insomnia in front of hundreds, if not thousands, of people in an arena, commentating Tekken. We commentated with Xavier Woods, WWE.
One of the most. That did make me laugh a lot.
Honestly, well, my whole style actually comes from wrestling. I love wrestling, right? I love the tongue-in-cheek nature, everything they do. I love the humor. I love the whole showmanship of it all. So to do a commentary gig with a wrestler, and he was so gracious to it, so awesome, was amazing. And it all went from there. I could go on and on, but Belong then gave me an opportunity to host their weekly esports show. Which I did, and was the best gig I've ever had, for sure. Being able to have creative input on a show and take it in a direction that I wanted to do. And I was nominated for UK esports year last year, which kind of topped it off very nicely. So yeah, it'd been a crazy 2 or 3 years. All started off with me seeing Eternal Dragon in a pub, instantly becoming really good mates, and then East London Fighters. I've got to say thank you so much to Vern Grimm, who gave us an opportunity to just be really, really silly on camera. He did everything for us, and he set up a community which have created some professional gamers and some very big lasting friendships. So big thank you to him and Belong as well. It's been a crazy, crazy ride.
I think that just about tops off exactly what I was saying. So if you ever needed an example of how the fighting game community comes together with no judgment, I mean, the best Tekken player in the world right now is someone from Pakistan. I don't know if that's still the case, but I mean,
I would say it is, yeah.
That is an example of how a single person from a single country that isn't really renowned for gaming as a whole, especially the FGC, has just come out of left field, completely annihilated people from what I've seen so far, and just proven how you can come from any background, turn up at a tournament, perform at a standard that is just exceptional, and everybody's accepting. Probably another gaming variety would probably do the same, and there would be judgment, there would be harassment, it would be this, it would be that. I was quite worried when, he started to become well known, because you never quite know how people are going to react to someone who's from a different background where the cultures are different and things like that. What was staggering was on Twitter was the amount of love, care, the almost joy that someone new had kind of come and just completely out of left field, it just completely changed the kind of gaming scene, and it was almost like a breath of fresh air. It was like something that gaming needed that was just different. And I think the other really nice thing was you could see that there were new hope almost, that kind of that the Far East Asia scene wasn't just going to dominate things. Anyone can essentially turn up to one of these tournaments and become someone almost overnight. And there was lots of articles written about him and, a variety of different things. And it was just a lovely thing to see that a community could come together and do the right thing by not going on a tangent of being negative about this, but doing the quite contrary and being completely praising, accepting. I mean, there were certain things where I was seeing people writing in his own language and stuff like that, which was just beautiful to see. Yeah. And it's lovely that the fighting community just has this almost family feel to it. I mean, we've known each other for well over 10 years. There's certain people in chat, I used to come to Luton for a couple of games with yourself and a few others, And even just a few moments that I spent with certain people, like I now have friendships with people, like, and I've only met them for like a day and a half. Just so welcoming, so caring, and things like that. So if anyone is looking for a community to go to, don't be afraid to turn up to tournaments or meets and things like that. Go mix with people. Obviously not now with the current ongoing crisis, but in the future, you know, feel free to go to these events and things like that, because you never know. Like look what's happened to Stu. By mixing with people, it has unlocked the door for people to meet and learn and educate, and it could open something up for you guys as well as it has done for Stu. So the one takeaway from there is probably don't be afraid to try something. You never know what could happen, and that is a perfect example of how just turning up to something and knowing in yourself that you could potentially win this has just turned into something that's amazing. And it's amazing to see how the fighting game community has just rallied around someone and has opened the door to other cultures, countries and stuff like that to integrate, and everybody's just taken to it really well, from what I can see anyway.
It's a true Cinderella story. So that's Arslan Ash. He a player from Pakistan. There'd been rumours that Pakistan had a really great Tekken scene. We'd had some players come over to the UK who lived in Pakistan, and they'd say, you know, they were our best player in the UK. He would, the guy asked him, he'd say, oh, actually, you know, I'm not even that good in my area back in Pakistan. I'm just really good here. You think, wow. But they never had the exposure, you know, whether it be visa issues or lack of internet, you'd never see them. So there was always a question, because Korean players typically in Tekken have been the best in the world. Are they really? Is there someone out there who can beat them? And it turns out, yes, there are players out there. The players in Pakistan are absolutely godlike and have smashed a lot of the Korean players. There's players in South America as well who are a big King of Fighters area of the world actually, but also fantastic at Tekken, but haven't had that exposure because they're in Peru. They won't travel the world, and the next theory about the untapped kind of region for amazing fighting game players is the whole of Africa. There's very little exposure for Africa in fighting games. Some exposure from South Africa, but there's rumours that there are players in Nigeria who are absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, COVID happened. Tekken World Tour has been paused for now, but I can't wait to see really how good some of these players, because the Tekken World Tour acknowledged this and have expanded its remit. It's gone beyond the usual locations. So you know some of the best Tekken hubs in the world are, you know, America, UK, Poland, actually, Germany, France, and of course Asia. But it's looking to stretch beyond there, and it's been a great thing for the Tekken scene, and it rejuvenated me. Back to what you said. The East London Fighters and the Luton scene, which is Najota, which you've turned up to. We had players turn up there who, you know, were new to the game and maybe were the best guy in their street, but you know, they turn up at a competitive event and suddenly it's really. But they stuck with it, and the support from the communities is huge. We've had players from Najota, you know, place at Tekken World Tour dojo events. I improved hugely playing with these guys. I ended up getting picked up by a Kidderminster Harriers esports team for a while, playing for them, which was a great dream of mine, and played on the Tekken World Tour myself. I mean, I improved hugely playing with these guys. So that level of support is huge, and you know, that love never leaves you. Seeing players who you knew weren't so good just get good is awesome.
So would you like to tell everyone where you're currently placed in the world, Stuart?
Well, that was last season. I finished 250th in the world at Tekken globally last year.
Good
Thank
job.
you. But I would say that I am 100% not 250th in the world. That's just where I placed. I had some really that I was like top few thousand maybe until right at the end of the season. I won 2 small dojo events right at the tail end of the season, which was a fantastic experience, and that pushed my score right up. And I think a lot of players had also probably stopped trying to get points because it was getting to the end of the season. They weren't going to be in the top 10.
Sure.
So yeah, I got very lucky, but yeah, that was a great experience. And again, like I've just ticked off this book. Tekken 7 has allowed me to tick off a lot of the bucket list. When GamerWeb ended years and years ago, when I knew you, I was really upset. I'd done a job that I had loved, and I was kind of concerned, honestly, whether the first job I had ever had, first proper job, was going to be the best job I'd ever had. And anything I did ever since was never going to match it. Yeah, that was a weird place to be mentally, and to be able to go back and sort of clear some demons out 14 years later was a great experience. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's been able to help me get to the place I've managed to get to. I've been very fortunate.
So that actually ties into a great question I've actually had come through from RockSalt9000, who's currently in chat. So he asks, what's the most weird moment of your career so far?
If we ever do an after hours, right, I'll give you a different answer. I probably
hashtag get Stu back.
I would definitely give you a different answer. Eternal Dragon, if you're watching, it's when we got approached after we did an event at Insomnia and who approached us, but we won't go into that now because it definitely is an after hours answer.
Right, well,
I would say I would say the most odd experience, like the pinch myself experience, definitely is this. When we were casting with Xavier Woods, we were halfway through a match, and this match went on for 5 hours. It was epic. It was amazing, wow. But it went on a really, really long time. And I could see Xavier Woods pointing at the camera, and I thought, what? Why is he pointing at the camera? Like, the camera's not on him. And I realised he was trying to communicate with production without using the mic, because the mic was live. And he was doing this. And basically, he was absolutely desperate to go for the loot. And I could see him sitting awkwardly in his chair, kind of crossing his legs. And that kind of pinch yourself moment, you're thinking, I'm sitting next to a guy who headlined WrestleMania that next year, but had been on WrestleMania before and done Royal Rumbles and all that. And he's trying to get away from us because he really needs the loo. Like, how has my career got to this point? It's just really, really, really odd.
It would have been slightly awkward if you see him start to undo a thing and then lower it. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. Is he going to get away with peeing in something?
I'll give a second answer. The other answer I would say, East London Fighters did a Royal Rumble event and allowed us to have wrestle entrances.
I did see that. That was epic. And
it was epic.
I want to take part in one of those in the future. I have to.
If anyone ever, East London Fighters, if you're watching, please do it again. And the entrances were absolutely insane.
And my entrance will be epic.
Someone did an entrance to dubstep Peppa Pig theme, right? That was pretty, like a trap dubstep version. And then another person stripped off their shirt and started doing like martial arts moves. I came in with a king mask on and got carried on by my teammates.
I noticed that because you couldn't see where you were going, right?
No, they were carrying me because you could not see what was happening in the mask.
I look really great, but I can't see a damn thing.
It was, yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people clocked onto that. It wasn't a delusion of grandeur; it was that. But that was amazing.
I have just got confirmation from East London Fighters, who are currently in chat. Thank you for joining. They've said we're working on it. Yes.
Nice.
Yes. I will be there. I assure you. I will have to think.
I'll tell you another weird experience, by the way, Dean. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go on.
So I made friends with this guy who was on GamerWeb once, years and years and years ago. And 2 years later, I started to get into playing Halo competitively and headed down to West London. I think it was West London for a tournament called the Elite Gaming Championships with my Halo team. We went down there and played competitive Halo 2.
There. That was in Heathrow, right? We were there.
That guy is you, right?
Oh.
So I went there and... you're a big guy, right? You're a statuesque guy. You were there with your brother, who looked like he could be your bouncer. He was like he was literally like someone had taken an inflatable version of you and just blowed a bit harder. He was just a much bigger guy like this.
It's a fair comment to be.
I know. I mean, big in like the height and statue way. I'm not slating your brother if he's still watching.
He is in chat. He will be laughing. He will be laughing, I'm sure.
And a pretty odd experience was seeing how competitive you were at FIFA. Oh my god!
I think it was Pro Evo. I think it was Pro Evo. Yeah.
You were rocking back and forth in your chair. You were like, whenever you scored a goal, you were screaming. And I remember playing Halo, thinking, "There's someone screaming near me whenever they score a goal," and it was you. I was like, "I know this guy." He's normally not this competitive, but you were going crazy.
I remember this guy was sitting next to me. I don't try not to curse on stream, but he really was pissing me off because every time he scored a goal, he was proper mugging me off. And if you want to get me at my worst, keep doing that, because what I do is I go very quiet and I go laser focused. And a few people have actually seen me do this on stream, where I literally, like, everything gets blocked out. I have blinkers on. Everything else just goes quiet, and I literally go into this weird zone. It's very weird. And I did it at Games World. I've done it everywhere I've gone. And I hit this, like, 35-yard screamer into the top corner. So I think he was, like, 3-0 up or something ridiculous. And everyone was like, oh, this is the done game. So I hit one screamer, right, done. Scored, like, a header, next one. And then the last one to level it up was I chipped his keeper from just outside the box. And that was the one that set me off, because I just saw the entire emotion out of him drain out. And I just stood up and just stood next to him with my arms open going, and what? What are you going to do? And then I just went off on one. And my brother was like, what are you doing? I'm like, it needed to be done, mate. It needed to be done. But yeah, it's weird because...
How was he mugging you off?
Oh, he was like, every goal, he was just like really getting in my face and giving it all that. And I thought, okay, all right, keep talking, sunshine, keep talking, you know, because if there's one thing, like I don't try like to verbalise my anger. I like to try. I like it all sort of like sits inside. It's like some weird like chi thing starts to build inside of me, and I just get more and more ragey. And like the filter starts to come in, the black starts to come in. And I just go into this laser focus mode, and that's when I just absolutely went on this. I just terrorised his defence. Like it was like 22 players then suddenly popped out on my team, and he just didn't know what to do. But yeah, it's weird. The older I've got, the more chill I've got. Like I was always this person where I felt like defeat was the height of the worst thing that could happen in gaming.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the thing I've learned, and especially when it comes to the fighting game scene, is that losing is actually development, and off that you learn how to get better. And you know, people will say, oh, you know, you're just crap at a game, and it's like, well, are you bad or are you trying to learn? And it was a very humbling moment where I turned up at the Luton places that I used to go to with you guys, and I was like, yeah, pretty good at Tekken. And then I think it was Deathborn just wiped the floor with me, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty shit actually. And so, you know, you kind of have to sit there, and then, you know, off the back of that, I didn't sort of go, oh, you know, I'm just rubbish, screw this game. I kind of sat back and went, all right, let's go back to the dojo. Let's sit down. Let's get some us. You know, let's really start to focus in, get the stick out, and like, you know, kind of like put some candles out. You know, play some like, you know, Far East Asian music. Like really get into the zone. I didn't do that. You know, I kind of like got the arcade stick out and started like, you know, sort of sitting there and practicing and getting combos in, and learn all the characters and stuff like that. Because it's only through development and losing you start to develop yourself. So hearing that story again actually brought back a lot of the things I hated about myself when I used to play games, where I would just get incredibly peed off through losing. And then now that I've got older and I've learnt that through losing you actually learn, that is the way forward. And I think that's something that possibly the youth of today are forgetting, is that, you know, people are playing, you know, not that I like to mention it, but play things like Fortnite, and they're suddenly like, well, because I didn't win, I suck. And it's like, well, what did you do wrong? Is there something you could do to improve? Through practice becomes the better person. So,
well, let's talk about that for a moment. Ninja. Don't know if you saw a tweet that he sent out that blew up, and I'm going to completely misquote him, but I'm going to try and strike the gist of it.
Paraphrase it, because I remember slightly some of it.
He basically said that if you don't feel a loss like it's the absolute, like, you know, if you don't really feel the loss like it's ruined your day, then why are you playing at all? It was something to that effect. Like, I'm completely, I don't want to slate him, but it created a lot of debate. And just like you, I would say back in the early days, I did really feel awful. It would ruin my day. I remember I played in a tournament where I think I got to the regional finals of a Tekken tournament, and I was 2-0 up in the final, and I lost 3-2. And the guy came back, and I didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. I was really upset. I just don't think that's actually a helpful mindset. I now look at some of the best players who I've ever played at Tekken, and they tend to actually be the most chill guys. They think about the loss and they return to the game immediately. One thing I didn't do is I took 2 days off. I was like, I'm not sure that hurt so bad. I'm not sure I want to pick up a pad. but actually it's the guys who get back on it straight away that are the most resilient and usually learn the quickest and get back in and win. I'd say that to a lot of people, whether it be you get rejected from other shows as a caster or host or presenter, or whether you just lose something maybe you shouldn't have. Like do it because you love it, not because you want to get to the top and not because you win. The rest will come. The rest will always come. Just do it for the love of it. That's what fighting games is all about. You mentioned about the community. They don't do it for the money.
Agreed.
They do it for the love of the game, because the money is nowhere near that Fortnite, CSGO, maybe Valorant in the future. It's not the same. We do it for the love of it.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I think that's something that, I mean, we spoke about someone else who was on the show before, in Banks, where I think he explained it right, which is, you know, we saw a player of Fortnite win a astronomical amount of money, and I think he was like 16 years old or something. And as I said the one fear that I have is that it could spark off parents going out and spending a load of money on whether it be a PC or, you know, something crazy for their kid, whether it be they want to get into streaming. And the results don't come straight away. And it's like, well, you've got to take a step back and realise that there is a learning curve, there is development, there is, you know, you've got to constantly keep trying. And it isn't a case that the kid just turned up and went, I've won it, cool, right, done. It's, you know, that there's a lot of development that has to come into there. And I think that's probably where the fighting game community is a little bit more accepting and wanting everybody to rise up at the same time, whereas other games are probably, you know, not going to pick on something, but probably CSGO has a lot of bitchery inside of it and bitching that goes on between teams and stuff like that. So rather than everyone else leveling up, it's just like, well, we're better, screw you guys, that's it, it's done. But yeah, there is still a worry that I think because gaming has got a lot more popular and the money in it has astronomically rised, especially for those at that top tier, there is a constant fear that people are doing it for the wrong reason. But obviously you can't reach that top tier unless you're, you know, putting in the work. But as you said, I think there's a lot to be said about doing it for the right reason. And I think if you love something so much, the monetary side is a secondary compared to the actual learning development and obviously, you know, advancing your own skill set within that game.
Yeah, I totally feel it. I should also say, like, I myself have 3 kids. They're all quite young. My oldest is my daughter Erica. She's 6. She's 7 actually now, just turned 7, and she plays a huge amount of Overwatch on the Switch. And I love Overwatch. I play it all the time myself. And I've had to catch myself because I play with her on the Switch, and 3 goes for her, 3 goes for me. And she was watching me play, and I was getting so salty that my team wasn't very good. And I was playing his hand zone. I was popping heads and stuff, and just the team weren't moving forward with me. And I was like, oh, so annoying. My team are no good. And I was thinking, I really need to be careful now because I can't let this carry on for another generation. I can't have her go through the same salt mine I went through for the 30 years of my life. So I've been trying to calm down myself. Like, I can see it. She does get salty, but you know, hopefully it's not going to carry on as much as it did with me. But yeah, there are so many great games. You don't need to spend a huge amount of money to play competitive games anymore. You know, the Switch, as an example, I heard Switch prices have gone up since COVID because everyone's trying to buy them. But Overwatch is 17 quid.
Yeah.
That game is great, right? And I think as a Switch game, it's ported over so well. And look, there's options out there for everyone. Just do it because you love it.
I mean, there's some brilliant actually free-to-play games on there anyway. I mean, Fortnite's on there. What is it called?
Warframe.
Warframe and Warface, which is the Crytek shooter as well. I mean, that is stunning for a free game that you can play. And I'm like, this is on a Switch. This is... What magical mastery is this to get this game on here? Speaking of which, if you haven't played The Witcher 3 on the Switch, it is brilliant.
Is it really?
It is. It's fantastic how they've managed to get a whole PC game on something that big. Is quite astonishing, but it is brilliant. I mean, obviously it's not as good as the PC one, but as a game on a device of that size, you kind of look past the kind of graphical errors and go, this is still very good as a game. So it's amazing to see what they can do with current technology. Right, to go quickly to another question. I'm assuming this is going to be slightly as an in-joke probably to you. It is from RC. They say, and I'm going to read this question as it is, when is Stu going to start a Tekken team with SSS Plus tier shirts?
So that's the Tekken player who's a King player. That's another example of a guy who I met at the biggest UK fighting games tournament called Versus Fighting. He was there 2 years ago, and I met him. He was getting absolutely blasted by a Spanish player, he's a really good Tekken player. I have been thinking about. So I should say, actually, I'm now retired as a Tekken player. When I hit finished season 2 of Tekken World Tour, and I've got 3 kids and other stuff going on, I thought I can't keep spinning every single plate, commentating, hosting, being a dad, working, and I decided that if I leave Tekken as a player now, I've left it probably at the highest I could have left it a lot of, so I've now been thinking maybe I could get involved in setting up a team. I would say that COVID and the Tekken World Tour not starting has given me more time to think about that. And I am known for wearing very colourful shirts. I didn't do that today, but I do wear very colourful shirts, dad shirts. So if I do set up a Tekken team, I definitely will be having the most ridiculously gaudy, colourful, insane, lame shirts you'll ever see. But I'm thinking about it.
I'm definitely in. On the shirts, maybe not to play because I don't think I'm at that level. I am trying. I'm trying to go back to the dojo as we speak. Although my arcade stick is RIP at the moment, but it will be back. I think it's cool how I've seen a few success stories with gaming teams myself. I mean, back in one of my previous jobs, we did a sponsorship for Team Dignitas. We were kind of quite big in gaming, and we had our little badge on the arm and stuff like that. And it was just at that point where teams were, or clans as they were more commonly known, kind of were starting to pick up a little bit of speed. And it was just before the credit crunch, actually, because there was loads of kind of like money being poured into gaming, and it all suddenly went. And Team Dignitas had already stayed around, and I've known Odie for God knows how many years. And I think it was, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, it got purchased by I think it was a baseball team, if I remember rightly, for some staggering amount of money. And it just showed, he set up the clan, I think it was in his, shed in his house, if I remember rightly. And just every year, it just become this huge monster. And he was having to buy, places for his teams to stay and all practice and stuff like that. And it just became this monster. And it just shows that just by having an idea in the right direction, it just exponentially grew into something. So it's a great idea. And I thoroughly look forward to seeing this. And I really hope that you go through and actually create this.
I never want to leave the scene, even if I stop playing, and even if right now the commentating and casting gigs are hard. I can't commentate that much from home because of the kids. They're 6 and 7 and under, so they're running around a lot and making a lot of noise, and I don't want to disturb them too much. So,
Daddy, why is King such a bad character?
They would never ask that. How dare you? How dare you? King is the best character in
Cheap character.
But now is actually a good time for esports in a weird kind of way, because the investment, if you want to invest in it, it's a cheap time to invest, but also it's become another option in the place of big sports events. So you saw the Bahrain F1 Grand Prix. They did, instead of that, they did the virtual Grand Prix.
Brilliant.
And that was a huge success, and it could not have been done better. And you actually have also been an early actor because you are really into VR. And I think at some point they are going to make the VR esport. And when they do that, it's just going to take off on a level. Imagine also being a spectator in that VR esport and being in the arena with your headset on, watching the players right next to you. It'd be like being at Wimbledon, sat in the umpire's chair. Well, it's just unbelievable.
It's funny you say that, because there are some pockets of VR esports starting. So there's a game called Onward, and the only way I can describe Onward is imagine Counter-Strike stupidly accurate and just insanely real life. So the one thing I saw is they gave it was played in this huge room, and what happened was every player was on like harnesses for the headsets, so the cables were coming out, so they weren't really feeling like they were tethered. They were all given these ProTube controllers. Unfortunately, I've put my headset away, but each controller basically sat into like it was almost like a gun holster, so the actual controllers would go into it, so they kind of can actually put the stock against their arms and stuff like that. But the game is so accurate that if you take a knee in real life, it takes a knee in the game. And if you want to crawl on the floor, if you completely prone yourself on the floor flat, it will do it in the game as well.
Wow.
But the accuracy in the game is ridiculous. Like, if you go to the shooting range inside of it, like if you go and get a sniper rifle and you put the bipod down, you actually have to look so accurately down the actual... I shouldn't probably do that on stream, it looks a bit weird. But if you actually look down the actual turret itself, down the scope, if you don't look straight down at it, I've broken him. I love it. If you actually look,
you've already said that the game knows when you're lying flat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm probably doing that was probably the worst thing I could have done. But looking straight down at the scope, if you don't look straight down accurate at it, the actual magnification actually starts to go like off because you're not looking straight at it. I mean, it's staggering how accurate the game is. So to see that being played in esports in these huge auditoriums, based on what you've just said, I can definitely see that being kicked up. Now, that's obviously at a very high area. There's another game called Pavlov that's kind of like I guess you could call it almost like a more CSGO kind of fast-paced shooter. But even that is starting to pick up a lot of traction at the moment, with things like the Oculus Quest becoming more available, that you can actually load the game onto the headset. Essentially, you can play what would be deemed a very competitive game without a PC straight on the headset in your living room. So I can see this kind of esports at-home competitive gaming scene suddenly spring out of this. And like you said, out of the global situation that we're currently in, there's a lot more content creation going on. There's definitely a lot more gaming happening. I mean, Xbox Live died, 3 weeks ago for a few hours because of the influx of people that happened. Yeah. I think Steam took a nosedive because of like how many people were just hitting the servers at the same time. So I strangely feel like for gaming right now, there's this resurgence of kind of people focusing on maybe one particular game, Tekken, Counter-Strikes, pick your flavour. But I actually believe that out of this is going to become a lot more competitive gamers, some interesting statistics about the type of games people have been playing. And as you said, I can see VR becoming a huge player in the esports scene in the future. But it just needs the right game to get started. I have a theory on it. I seem to think that Valve could be working on Team Fortress 3. And I think if that happens, that could be the thing that kickstarts it off. That's my own opinion. That's what I think. But I think that could be the thing that really ignites this off.
It needs to force the players to all interact with the game in the same way. I mean, one thing I'm not a massive fan of right now is actually cross-play between PC and console on first-person shooters. Yeah. I get that it's more inclusive and it's nice that, Sony are working with Microsoft and all this stuff. I get it. It's nice. But are you telling me that a guy on a keyboard and mouse is gonna be worse than the same ability player on a pad? He's gonna destroy him. Like, it doesn't matter. And I think the gap between the two is actually pretty darn wide. Like, I know myself, and I play Apex on the Xbox mostly, but I know I'm much better when I play it on the PC, and I don't even play PC much because the level of accuracy is so much higher. So it need to have enough people using VR. That's the thing, because you wouldn't want to be playing VR versus a guy who's just playing third person mode using his mouse and keyboard.
Totally agree, and I think VR is almost its own gaming trying to think of a gaming channel or gaming path, I guess you could call it. But I mean, the one good thing about VR is it's a lot more uniform in its playing style than it is against consoles and PCs, as you said. I mean, with most VR setups, the hand controllers are almost the same in terms of the way you hold them, the way they interact. The headsets are almost the same in the way they work. So there is a lot more consistency with VR than there is kind of, I guess, with console gaming and PC gaming. But you're absolutely right. I feel bad that I know that I can play something like Call of Duty Warzone and I'm sitting there with my keyboard and mouse, and that there's probably someone sitting there with a joypad, and I'm just going, yeah, thank you very much, good night.
It doesn't stop you pulling the trigger, Dean.
No, it doesn't. It does not stop me pulling the trigger at all. But I think cross-play against consoles totally makes sense. Yeah. Cross-play, including PCs, in the right game, yes, but for first-person shooters, it doesn't make sense at all. I absolutely agree with that. Right, we have another question that's come in, also from RC. They have said, I credit Stu with helping me improve a lot. How does Stu feel about the mental role he's adopted? And was that purposeful or accidental? Good question.
I'm just older than the average player, I guess. I'm 38 in a couple of weeks. And I've had this weird sort of 2 different excellent adventures in gaming. One 16 years ago, one since Tekken 7 came out. And I've tried to fit in as much as possible in the last 3 years to clear out some demons in the closet and also make the most of my reactions before they completely deplete. So whether it be playing or whatever else. So yeah, it's just because I'm older, I think. I've seen... us older Tekken players, we remember not being very good because we didn't have the internet like the new Tekken players. A Tekken player can get seriously damn good by playing just at home on the internet. And that, not just Tekken, any fighting game or almost any game, right? You don't need to go to a LAN, you don't need to go to an arcade, you can play well at home. So, you know, a good player back in the day at Tekken or any fighting game was nowhere near as good as a guy because of that. But what we do have is a bit more... probably match wits and a bit more street. Maybe have picked up some experiences, whether it be some guy trying to mug you off when you were playing. I had a guy once shine. I was playing in a shopping centre because tournaments used to happen in shopping centres now and again, and some guy was shining a laser pen in my eye whilst I was playing. It was actually that tournament that I lost.
That is a serious big move.
Yeah, but I think that there's lots of different things happen. But one thing you learn is how to handle losses and how to handle wins. That's actually important too. And I've just, if there's any advice I can ever give, I'll give it. But I think it just goes back to just being a little bit older than the average player. I would say actually that some of the best players in the world are over 30, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. You think everyone's a kid, but it's a bit like any sport. There seems to be a different age, different sort of core age to where people are in their absolute prime. You look at gymnastics, they're like 16, 17, they're past it when they hit 19, 20. Yeah. In other sports, potentially tennis, they're at their absolute best potentially when they're in their early to mid 30s. And it's kind of like that with Tekken actually. They tend to be a bit older. It's a legacy game. There's tons of knowledge to learn. So yeah, I would probably just say it's because I'm old.
So I think I will ask you a question. I'm just going to lock off the questions for the moment because we are nearing. I think we've actually gone past the hour, so I will. I will ask the final question. What is a piece of advice or some advice that you would give to anyone who wants to get into kind of casting or presenting work and stuff like that? Because obviously you've kind of been through the mill with regards to kind of going through a variety of different trials and tribulations. So I guess for anyone who wants to get into kind of casting, especially in the gaming scene, what kind of advice would you give to them?
A few things. I'd say be inspired by people, but never. So that's a big thing in fighting games, especially, I would say, because some of the biggest casters in the world in fighting games are American, and they've all got their own catchphrases, and there's a very American way of commentating video games, which I absolutely love. But it's like singing in a song, adopting an American accent. Why are you doing that? You're English, right? So be who you are, okay? Be inspired by people, but always be who you are and know who you are as a character. I would say one of the things that you should look to as well is other mediums. Don't be inspired just by the game that you're playing. If you're a fighting game caster, there are much bigger games out there. Just accept it. And more well-established roles. In League of Legends, for example, you actually have, a color caster and a play-by-play, and they're completely different. And some people never cross between the two. But I think understanding those different roles, why they exist, give you a greater insight as to how you can cast Tekken and what your balance will be with another person. And that probably moves me on to one of the couple more things. One is that I would say find someone who you love to commentate with. Just for me, there's been some people over the years that I have just bounced off so well. most of all Eternal Dragon, if people can see you're friends with someone off camera, and that you both have a shared love for the game, and that when you have a dig at each other, it's a friendly dig and not a genuine, this guy doesn't like that guy. It goes a long way, right? People just want to watch friends have fun. It doesn't matter what the medium is. And making each other laugh is okay. It's okay just to fall to bits. If you're enjoying yourself on camera, it's good. And the final thing I would say is that if I can give anyone any kind of feedback or inspiration, I started in the games industry when I was 21, and I had 14 years of not doing much other than being a competitor. And that's okay, right? The gigs will come when they come. The moment will come when it comes. It might take that big new game. It might take meeting a friend or being given an opportunity by people that never gave you an opportunity before, but always keep trying. Never give up. If that's really what you want to do, never give up. Just do it for the love of it, and the good times will come.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on there. I think if you have a passion for something, you will move mountains to try and achieve it, right? And I think there's similar to what we said about professional gamers. If you're going into it with the wrong attitude, you're never going to achieve it, right? Because for instance, if you're only going into it for the money, you're never going to get there. If you go into something because you have a genuine passion for it, you will spend a lot of time researching, developing your skills, learning your craft, learning more about the actual role. And as you said, I guess it's important to kind of know what it is that you're trying to commentate on or learn or develop into. I mean, as you said, there's a variety of different types of roles. I used to watch some of the Gfinity Street Fighter competitive tournaments and stuff and the championships, and there would be, I think, 4 different people on that show, and each person would have its own individual role. There would be an expert, there would be those who would do the colour commentary, there would be those who were interviewing the competitors backstage. So there's a variety of different avenues you could take, whereas maybe the colour commentary may not be your area, but maybe if you have a very in-depth knowledge of a specific game area, maybe go into that. So I think the only thing I would probably add to that is maybe start to build a portfolio of work, whether that's your own research or I was just kind of thinking while you were talking, maybe an idea is take a section of maybe a Twitch stream that you're enjoying or something competitive that you enjoy. Maybe take that down, and then maybe do your own commentary on that, and maybe stick that on YouTube. Absolutely. And stuff like that. So having some sort of portfolio to prove that you're active in what you're trying to achieve is better than just turning up with nothing.
And it is, let's say everyone has a computer. If you're watching this, you have at least or maybe an iPad, or something like that. But let's put that aside. It is almost free to get good at this gig. Okay, just like being good at a computer game, as you said, it's almost free. You just need a computer. You need a potato computer to play League of Legends. It's free to get into this thing, right? And now's not a bad time. It's a really good time to decide, I think, right now who you want to be, what you want to do. Everyone's stuck at home right now, and it's a tough time. But don't ever think there are barriers. If you're not given opportunities, well, there's no one stopping you starting a Twitch. No one's starting you, turning a bedroom into a little gamer den like you and I have both done to a degree here, and doing something that you think is enjoyable. If you think you would watch it, then someone out there is going to watch it too. There's billions of people out there.
Agreed, and there's quite a few of us that happen to be at home at the moment, so there is no excuse to not start it up. And I always say this to people: if you're at home, if you feel that you need a creative outlet, if you feel like you want to start to play games and stream and stuff like that, it's so easy to set up a Twitch stream now. You can do it directly from a console. Doing it from a PC can literally be as simple as 4 clicks if you have the right software. And as I said, if it's something that you creatively need as an outlet, whether you're an artist, you're interested in podcasting, if you're interested in gaming, art, design, crafts, programming, whatever it is, use the time now, especially now, as your way to hone your craft. And as I said, and this goes to everyone in chat, if you want advice, if you want to learn a little bit more, feel free to DM me. My DMs are always open for the right reasons. And Stu sends me dodgy ones all the time. It's fine, don't worry. But if you do want advice and stuff like that, and I'm sure Stu will probably agree with me, if you guys want advice or anything like that to help you guys get into something, feel free to reach out to someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be us. It could be anyone you're interested in, a specific area or something like that. Never be afraid to approach people for advice. 9 times out of 10, you should get the advice that you need.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And support people right now. Like that, probably a nice thing to end on is support the streamers you love. Right, just people. I won't mention. I donated to a stream. I hadn't donated. I get a whiteboard now and set up my people. It means a lot to people right now. People are stuck in, right? There's not a lot for them to do. Like, just do whatever you can to support those around you and interact. It means a lot to people right now. I can see it.
No, I agree. I mean, I do streams, well, semi regularly now. And even, even having people in chat right now is such a it's such an honour to have people to even turn up to these things, which sounds ridiculous. I know I've been doing this for a bit of time, but I still get that buzz when I even see one person say something in chat. Like that to me still means the world. So if you do turn up to someone's Twitch stream, just drop them a hello. As someone has just done, actually. Just dropping them a hello and asking them how their day is really does make a difference. And as I said, we're all in this together, right? We're all going through this. So if people are going out of their way to make content, then definitely do that. And I must actually say a huge thank you to those who have actually been gifting subs and have actually just subbed to the channel right now. So thank you very much for that. It is greatly appreciated, and thank you very much for that support. But yeah, I mean, in closing, I think now is a perfect time to support streamers, support the content creators, and if you want to have a go yourself, have a go. There's no perfect time to do it. In fact, if you really, really want to, you can even turn your phone into a streaming... God, I've got a lot of messages. You can even turn your stream into straight from your phone. If you download something like Streamlabs, you can actually... or even from the Twitch app, actually. You can actually stream directly from your phone. So if you want to do a silly IRL chat or... you've got, like I said, if you're into arts and crafts, you can do it straight from your phone. So there's no perfect time to get into content creation, or if you do have a specific area that you'd like to get into, now is the time to definitely do it.
I agree.
There we go. Right, I am going to let Stu get his time back, because obviously he needs to go back and start working on his new team that I have found about. Ooh. Which hopefully I will learn a little bit more about in the future. Judging by what Stu has said, it also means that when he finally retires, we have to get him back to learn the other secrets that he has been holding back. So,
do you remember Games Master? They once had a Halloween edition where it was late hours and they had gory games on. And they let the SHIT hit the fan. We should do that one day.
So there we go. I think what I'll have to do is I'll have to do a post Watershed stream. I mean, to be fair, I do set my streams to mature audiences anyway. So I guess at some point I will have to do a get you back, and we'll do one of those for sure. So yeah.
I look forward to it.
No, indeed. Well, thank you very much, Stu. It has been a pleasure. I can't believe how quick and how fast that hour and a half, Christ, has flown by. It's insane how quick time goes. But no, thank you all very, very much for joining me. And Stu, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you here, and it's great to talk to you again. We don't get to talk enough with our days and lives and stuff like that. But it's always such a pleasure to see you. And even that time I spent with you when you absolutely kicked my arse at Tekken in Luton, it was such a pleasure to sit next to you. And honestly, I think from me and the rest of the FGC, thank you very, very much for all you have done. There is clearly a lot of people who have a lot to thank you for. I certainly do. And the mental work that you do and the work that you do with all of your casting work and your presenting work has been second to none, some of the best that I have seen, and I can say that. So thank you very much.
And to close from me, look, I'm at Abominable TV, but don't follow me. Follow someone who inspires you, and follow someone who is into all the things you do, and just enjoy yourself over this COVID nightmare. Just do what you can to support each other. I just want to say one last thank you to all the people who have supported me, whether it be Dean, Eternal Dragon, Vern Grimm, the guys that belong, Martin, Brettle, Ash Atwater, everyone, thank you so much. And most of all, thank you to my wife who has put up with me doing all this stuff while she looks after the kids.
The real MVP there is his wife. But no, if you do want to follow Stu, regardless of what he says, there is a link in chat to his Twitter, so make sure you go and give him a follow and tell him I sent you. Tell him I did it. And then just start harassing him. No, don't do that. Don't do the harassment.
I'm not going to buy you a Five Guys.
Damn, I was hoping for it. Actually, one funny story is I've never seen someone tear through as many peanuts in a Five Guys than you.
They're so good. They're so good.
I was amazed. I remember we went to Five Guys after during one of our Tekken sessions, and I had never seen. I was standing there and I was like, wow, this is a man who is into his peanuts. Like,
they are so good.
To be fair, they are addictive as hell, which is why I stay away from them. Because if I start, I will literally walk off with a box and just sit in the corner like a hermit. Like, I love this.
I should say I did actually buy something in Five Guys. I didn't just go and get the free.
No, I can vouch. He did actually buy something. He wasn't there just for the peanuts. I can tell. Yeah, some people have also vouched for your eating of peanuts, and they are indeed amazing. Right. Anyway, enough. Since it is food chat, I need to go and get something to eat myself. So from myself and from Stu, thank you all very, very much for joining me. If you are watching this on demand, make sure you go and follow Stu at Abominable TV. That's on Twitch. On Twitter even. And yeah, I think I will end it there. So thank you very, very much, Stu. Stay on the line. I will talk to you after we go off the air. But thank you all very, very much for all the subs, all the bits, and all the support that you've given me, and for the questions earlier as well. So thank you very much for that. Right, from me, MeanMachineDean. I need to find the right button. Hang on a minute. There we go. That's the one I need. Right, from me, MeanMachineDean, and from Stu. I was hoping you were going to say something then. There we go. There you go. Have a great Saturday, and thank you very much, and have a great weekend. And make sure you wash your hands as well. It's very important. Right. And you as well. Right. Anyway, take care all, and I will speak to you all soon. MeanMachineDean, signing out.